Congratulations, you made it through Lent. Now we're in Easter. And of course, we could look back at Lent and say, how did it go? Was it successful? If so, congratulations, great. Did you fail at all? Join the club with me as well, failing at Lent sometimes. Of course, we set up with these huge resolutions, and hopefully we're able to grow closer to Christ during Lent so we can experience this Easter joy. And all kidding aside, I really hope you did have a good Lent. And for the most part, I did as well, except I continue to fail at the same thing I kind of fail at every single year. You see, I love sports. I do. Maybe you figured that out by now. I preach about Minnesota sports a little bit too often. And once again, it's Easter, I'll be preaching about Minnesota sports a little bit again. And so every Lent I say, how can I give up sports? How can I maybe turn off K-Fan? How can I stop looking at, how the Wild did? Because they obviously do horrible in the playoffs like every other year. But maybe the Easter joy will change it around today. Will the Gophers finally win a basketball game in March Madness? The answer, of course, is no. Will Wisconsin win again? Yes, unfortunately. Right? All these things. So why do I even watch these things? Why do I listen to these things? I don't know. It sounds like I'm making a confession right now that I'm addicted to sports in some ways. Now, I will say I'm also addicted to God, which is a good thing. But in the morning, I have to make a decision. And during Lent, I always try to make the right decision. You see, when I wake up and I get ready to come here to minister and stuff, I'm getting ready in the morning, I always like to have something on in the background. Some mornings it's silence. Maybe I'm running way too late. I can't even turn on the radio or my phone. But most mornings I have time to either turn on music or I could turn on a podcast, which usually is of The Common Man with Mark Rosen. I like listening to that. But during Lent, I always try to choose something different. I try to choose relevant radio. Now, you can listen to relevant radio on your radio. It's 13:30 a.m. I always listen on my phone because I don't even know where my radio is half the time. So I live cast it right from my phone. And so about 6:30 in the morning when I wake up and hit the snooze button about 7-8 times after that, when I wake up, I make that decision. Am I going to listen to a podcast or am I going to listen to relevant radio? And throughout Lent, most of the time I chose relevant radio. And in the morning at 6:55 every single morning, something comes on relevant radio. It's called Glenn's Story Corner. Now, if I'm still listening to Glenn's Story Corner at 6:55 in the morning, it means I'm running late, by the way, because I'm supposed to be here by 7 o'clock. So most mornings I was running late. Once again, it sounds like a confession today, doesn't it? Right? But anyways, I'd be listening, and Glenn's Story Corner, if you've never listened before, it's amazing. Granted, it's kind of cheesy, and sometimes it's extra cheesy, that background music, but there's always some great messages in here. So I do encourage you to, maybe listen to relevant radio in the morning, or any time actually for that part, and especially Glenn's Story Corner. And there was a story I heard about a month ago on Glenn's Story Corner, which I thought that is a great message about the resurrection. And so I printed it off, and I want to read this story to you. Usually Glenn's Story Corners are very short, maybe 3-4 minutes. This one's a little longer, but I think it's worth it. I don't have the background music to go with it like they would on Glenn's Story Corner. One singing if I had more time and I was better at Lent. I do all those things. You're supposed to laugh like once this morning, please. Thank you. I know I'm not a comedian. I never want to be one, but just every once in a while, fool me, okay? Thank you. All right, so this story takes place, and it's written by someone who submitted it to Glenn. His name is Paul, and he's a lot older than I am. You're going to figure that out by the first line, because the first line, it says, "When I was quite young, my family had one of the first telephones in our neighborhood." That wasn't me. My dad already had a cell phone, I think, when I was born. So when I was quite young, my family had one of the first telephones in our neighborhood. I remember well the polished oak case fastened to the wall on the lower stair landing. The shiny receiver hung on the side of the box. I even remembered the number, 105. I was too little to reach the telephone, but used to listen with fascination when my mother talked into it. Once she lifted me up to speak to my father, who was away on business. Magic. Then I discovered that somewhere inside the wonderful device lived an amazing person. Her name was Information Please. And there was nothing that she did not know. My mother could ask for anybody's number, and when our clock ran down, Information Please immediately supplied the correct time. My first personal experience with this genie in the receiver came one day while my mother was visiting a neighbor. Amusing myself at the tool bench in the basement, I whacked my finger with a hammer. The pain was terrible, but there didn't seem to be much use of crying because there is no one home to offer sympathy. I walked around the house, sucking my throbbing finger, finally arriving at the stairway. The telephone, quickly. I ran for the footstool in the parlor and dragged it to the landing. Climbing up, I unhooked the receiver and held it to my ear. "Information, please," I said into the mouthpiece just above my head. A click or two and a small, clear voice spoke into my ear. "Information?" I hurt my finger. I wailed into the phone. The tears came readily enough now that I had an audience. "Isn't your mother home?" came the question. "Nobody's at home but me," I blubbered. "Are you bleeding?" "No," I replied. I hit it with the hammer, and it hurts. "Can you open your icebox?" she asked. I said I could. Then chip off a little piece of ice and hold it on your finger. That will hurt. That will stop the hurt. "Be careful when you use the ice pick," she admonished, "and don't cry. You'll be all right." After that, I called "Information, please" for everything. I asked for help with my geography, and she told me where Philadelphia was. And the Orinoco, the romantic river I was going to explore when I grew up, she helped me with my arithmetic, and she told me that a pet chipmunk I had caught him in the park would eat fruits and nuts. And there was that time that Petey, our pet canary, died. I called "Information, please" and told her the sad story. She listened, then said the usual things grown-ups say to soothe a child. But I was unconsoled. Why was it that birds should sing so beautifully and bring joy to whole families, only to end up as a heap of feathers feet up on the bottom of a cage? She must have sensed my deep concern, for she quietly said, "Paul, always remember that there are other worlds to sing in." Somehow, I felt better. All this took place in a small town in the Pacific Northwest. Then, when I was 9 years old, we moved across the country to Boston, and I missed my mentor acutely. "Information, please" belonged in that old wooden box back at home, and I somehow never thought of trying the tall, skinny new phone that sat on the small table in the hall. Yet as I grew into my teens, the memories of those childhood conversations never really left me. Often in moments of doubt and perplexity, I'd recall the serene sense of security I had when I knew that I could call "Information, please" and get the right answer. I appreciate now how very patient, understanding, and kind she was to have wasted her time on a little boy. A few years later, on my way back to college, my plane put down in Seattle. I had about a half an hour between plane connections, and I spent 15 minutes or so on the phone with my sister, who lived there now, happily married. Then, really without thinking what I was doing, I dialed my hometown operator and said, "Information, please." Miraculously, I heard again the small, clear voice that I knew so well. "Information." I hadn't planned this, but I heard myself saying, "Could you tell me what to feed a chipmunk?" There was a long pause. Then came the softly spoken answer. "I guess," said "Information, please," "that your finger must have healed by now." I laughed. "So it's really still you? I wonder if you have any idea how much you meant to me during all that time." "I wonder," she replied, "if you know how much you meant to me. I never had any children, and I used to look forward to your calls." Silly, wasn't it? It didn't seem silly, but I didn't say so. Instead, I told her how often I had thought of her over the years, and I asked if I could call her back again when I came back to visit my sister when the semester was over. "Please do. Just ask for Sally." Goodbye, Sally. It sounded strange for "Information, please" to have a name. If I run into any chipmunks, I'll tell them to eat fruits and nuts. "Do that," she said, "and I expect one of these days you'll be off to the Orinoco." Well, goodbye. Just 3 months later, I was back again at the Seattle airport. A different voice answered, "Information." And I asked for Sally. "Are you a friend?" "Yes," I said, "an old friend." "Then I'm sorry to have to tell you, Sally had only been working part-time in the last few years because she was ill. She passed away 5 weeks ago." But before I could hang up, she said, "Wait a minute. Did you say your name was Paul?" "Yes." "Well, Sally left a message for you." She wrote it down. "What was it?" I asked, almost knowing in advance what the words would be. "Here it is. I'll read it. Tell him I still say there are other worlds to sing in. He'll know what I mean." I thanked her and hung up. I did know what Sally meant. At first, this story doesn't seem much like an Easter story, does it? It causes us sorrow. It causes us tears. Even now, when I read this, I get choked up a little bit because of memories of loved ones that I have had that I wish I could call. I wish I could have a conversation with. But we remember, as Sally said, there's other worlds to sing in. There's a world to sing in. And that world is heaven. It's eternal. It doesn't come to an end, but it's there for us, where there's no more pain, there's no more sorrow, there's no more suffering, because Christ has gone before us. And in the resurrection, what he has done is he has opened up the gates of heaven, freeing us from all of this, saying, "Follow me. I am the light that goes into the darkness. Put your faith in me. Put your trust in me. Put your whole being in me, and I will show you the way." Why? Because Christ, our Lord and our Savior, is the victor over death. And so today, as we celebrate this Easter joy, we remember what he has done for us. We remember that the tomb is empty. He has gone before us, and he is telling us, "Follow me to a world that never ends."